In preparing for my talk today, I discovered accidentally the worst way to prepare to give a TED Talk. Want to know what it is? It's to watch all the great TED Talks that have come before you. And as inspirational and thought-provoking as that exercise was, it stripped away any lingering shred of self-confidence that I had that I could give an interesting talk. But this process of self-loathing and doubt, it made me kind of realize that there are voices that we're naturally drawn to compared to voices that often go ignored or unnoticed. So, for example, at one end of the spectrum, there are TED speakers. Myself excluded, there are inspirational people trying to make the world a better place, so we all come to these events or watch them online. Which is to suggest that there is already an abundance of great ideas that are in existence. So my question today is this: if we focus or pay too much attention just listening to inspirational, innovative, important people, are we listening enough to normal people? Which by definition is most of us, yeah? So my humble suggestion is that we listen more, bless you. But we do that, we listen more, but not just to more TED Talks, ironically, or speeches by important people, but to everyday people, even if their perspectives are something that we find to be wrong or unimportant or less worthy, and to do so in a fundamentally more human way. Now, I'll get to what I mean by that a bit later, but first, I want to pose my question in the context of my everyday life. As a teacher, I'm always confronted by the fact that I have a limited amount of time to cover a broad range of subjects to my students on any given day. And I know that if I call on that curious student, that is thinking above and beyond the scope of that lesson, I'm going to get sidetracked, which I don't really have the time for. But if I call on that student who I think will give me the answers that I want to hear, well, I can expedite the process, and I can make the learning process more efficient. But the thing is, we shouldn't be doing that. I should be calling on that curious student with the difficult question, however inconvenient or inefficient it might be. Because teachers, we need to open up discussions. We need to address points of contention and take interesting detours by exploring students' ideas. Because in doing so, we build a safe environment where we can enable curiosity, where we can provide a sense of belonging, rather than me focusing on crossing off my to-do list. So we shouldn't sacrifice curiosity for the sake of efficiency. Classrooms need to be safe, inclusive, collaborative environment of open-mindedness, and maybe just a little bit more kindness, where teachers not only preach, but listen to students, right? So what that means is we have to build a relationship of mutual respect and reciprocity, which means teachers have to provide experiences and wisdom that Google and the internet cannot to the students, because classrooms are not factories that mass produce education. So we must pay attention to not just what we teach, but why and how we teach. The thing is, we all know this, right? That there is a better way. But we often fail to do this because listening takes time. Reaching a certain level of collective understanding, well, that takes even longer. And trying to navigate through the sea of complex human emotions, our vulnerabilities, and our insecurities, that is an immensely difficult task. So we often take the shortcuts or get by with what is efficient. And this isn't a problem that just happens in classrooms. It happens in everyday situations. For example, people often go out of their way not to talk to people that they don't like or that they disagree with. But if we only talk to people that we like, well, that further polarizes us from the people that we disagree with. So my point is this. We have to continue having conversations with people even if we don't agree with them, because that is the only way we actually change perspectives, both theirs and ours. But what makes this a little bit more difficult is that we do live in a digital age of instant gratification and virtual emotions, where we sometimes forget that making connections with people isn't about efficiency. Caring about somebody isn't about just liking someone's Facebook post. Because building a relationship, it takes time and effort, because we've all built up this facade to protect ourselves from pain and feeling vulnerable. So in order to really connect with people, we need to earn their trust first, and that can only happen when you listen. When you listen without putting your own agendas ahead of theirs. So my humble, simple idea is this. Next time you like someone's post online, that's fine, but don't stop there. Tell them in person. Engage in a conversation, even if they're just normal people, and maybe their ideas are not worth spreading. Invest time in people, and bear in mind that technology, however efficient, is never an outright replacement for human engagement. For example, think about the number of likes you give online on any given day, and compare that to the number of likes that you actually give out in person. In a way, what we're doing, what we're becoming more accustomed to, is like telling someone that you love them and you care about them, but you only do it online or through a text. And while the words may still be true, much is lost in the context. So just like there are no shortcuts to creating a classroom that fosters curiosity, that rewards vulnerability, we have to keep in mind that we cannot make meaningful connections or change people's perspectives without listening with a more fundamentally equal and human way. Thank you for listening.